number 8 reinforces a valuable lesson that, quite frankly, we should all take to heart this holiday season. Don't leave your robot doppelganger in a hollowed out tree. Okay, because then you're going to forget about them, and robots don't like it when you forget about them. Don't you remember that Star Wars movie when that happened to C-3PO? Okay, and he got all weird and moody afterward, and he put on a red arm, which is like the robot equivalent of a goth phase. What was I talking about? But yeah, apparently in the Silver Age, it used to be a trick that Supergirl would do where she would, like, switch out with a civilian robot doppelganger of herself when she needed to go and be Supergirl. And she used to keep the robot in a hollowed-out tree, apparently. And this issue harkens back to that as we see what has happened to the robot after it is forgotten after many years. This is a light, fun, colorful issue, as most, if not all, the issues of this new Supergirl series have been thus far. I can definitely appreciate them using Silver Age stuff as fodder for new material, and what's cool is that Supergirl actually does turn it into kind of a lesson for her apprentice of sorts, Les Lallar. I do have a question, though. Why does the robot call Supergirl Mistress? I'm not suggesting anything weird is going on there. I'm just saying it invites weird questions. You know, as I think I've said before, there's no better time for there to be a strong, fun Supergirl series on the market than right now, what with the new Supergirl movie coming out next year. And you know, the more I read of this series, the more it wins me over, the more I'm warming up to it. So things are looking good in the world of Supergirl these days. You know, every once in a while, a really skilled artist will take an iconic character, a superhero, for instance, and give them something really, like, mundane and average to do. And when the moment is done right and well, it makes the character look no less iconic, but a little more human and a little more relatable to we the common folk. There's a moment like that in Wonder Woman number 28, and it's actually my favorite part of the issue. So this issue is about the aftermath of Wonder Woman taking down the tyrannical dictator Mouseman, and his island of subjects now have free will. To that end, this cover is really cool. Wonder Woman standing in front of the burning Mouseman flag. Very iconic. But there's a page in this issue, like a 9-panel Watchmen-style grid, this is just a piece of it, where Wonder Woman is sitting beside a hospital bed talking to a bad guy, and she's saying something quite consequential as far as his future is concerned. But as she's doing it, she seems to see like a blemish or a piece of dirt on her bracelet, and she takes it off and she just cleans it. I thought that was a really fun thing to have her doing, to sort of contrast the intimidating and foreboding nature of what she's saying to this person. Great work by our artist Daniel Sampere and our colorist Tomio Mori. Jorge Fornes also tags in to do some art for this issue to sort of give us an indicator of what's coming next year in the pages of Wonder Woman. Always nice to see his work. You know, I might talk about this again in the coming weeks, but I'll say it again here just for the heck of it. I don't think the Wonder Woman ongoing series was quite as strong this year as it was in 2024, but it is still very strong. And Wonder Woman comics on the whole are healthier in 2025 going into 2026 than they've been in 20-some years. And we can be grateful for that. You know, I've been waiting a long time for a story like Wrestle Heist, issue 1 of which just came out. So I'm watching this book quite intently and with a lot of curiosity. So this issue is about a wrestler named Sterling Steele, who is intentionally injured, his neck is broken, during a big wrestling match at the whim of a dirty promoter to prevent him from going to work for a competing promotion. And as such, to pay off his resulting debts, Sterling teams with another retired former wrestler to steal a bunch of money from said crooked promoter. I've been a wrestling fan for, God help me, about 30 years now. And pro wrestling is such a unique beast in terms of business, sports, entertainment. I mean, it falls into various different columns. It's a hybrid of a lot of different things. And sometimes the backstage stuff, like the political stuff and the machinations of how the sauce gets made, is more interesting than what we see on television. And I've always thought that backstage kind of cutthroat, political, semi-shady pro wrestling environment would be a great backdrop for like a suspense, intrigue, crime story. And fingers crossed, that's what we're getting here with Wrestle Heist. There's a lot of explaining and kind of exposition early on in this issue by our author slash penciler Kyle Starks, as he kind of has to lay out for the reader what the rules of pro wrestling are, how the culture works. I think it comes off about as well as one could hope. I mean, the most important thing is that by the end of the issue, we care about Sterling and what happens to him, and that is indeed the case here. My big question coming into this issue was whether this kind of cartoony style would lend itself to the action and the really intense drama that we see at certain points here. Like, for instance, Sterling getting his neck broken during the match. I mean, that's a high intensity moment. I think what we get here works pretty well. It certainly elicits the right reaction and emotion from the reader, or at least it did from me. I guess the moral of the story is don't underestimate the power of a good cartoon or a cartoony style. I'm not comparing Wrestle Heist here, but for instance, a comic strip like Calvin and Hobbes can really make you feel things. So yeah, if you're someone who has interest in both comic books and pro wrestling, as I very much do, I would highly recommend Wrestle Heist. So far, so good. By the way, hat tip to Kyle Starks for designing the cover to this first issue like the cover to an issue of Pro Wrestling Illustrated, which I think is the only like retro wrestling magazine that's still standing to this day. It's the ultimate battle of technology versus nature as Cyborg takes on Swamp Thing in Titans number 30. So this is another tie-in with DCKO. Swamp Thing and Cyborg are fighting in a big tournament to see who gets celestial godlike powers to fight against Darkseid when he comes back to Earth. I thought the early portion of this issue was really well written by our author John Layman. It established each character's motivation and why they want to fight each other and win this tournament. It's not just the semi-omnipotent voice telling them fight. Yeah, the whole video game 2 out of 3 falls format is kind of tired for me already, so the more character motivation we can get in these versus stories, the better. And yeah, things are moving along pretty well with this issue and this fight. And then they get to the finish, the ending, the resolution, and it sucks. Yeah, just kind of an abrupt, weird ending that makes the loser look, I don't know if they look weak, but they look kind of weird. This is also the first DCKO fight where I have disagreed with the outcome. I think the larger story would have been more interesting if they'd gone the other way. I haven't read them all yet, but so far these DCKO versus issues are pretty okay. And that's about it, at least for my money. The issue that has done it the best, in my opinion, was Aquaman and the fight with Hawkman. I really don't think the sweater distracts from anything. I don't know what you're talking about. Superman Unlimited number 8 guest stars the character that I really think should win the whole DC KO tournament, Green Lantern Guy Gardner. So in this issue, Lois Lane is covering the launch of a commercial rocket from Simon Stagg and Stagg Industries. The rocket is powered by kryptonite, which means that Superman is helpless if something goes wrong. And of course, something does go wrong, as it always does. But Guy Gardner is there to help save the day. Lucas Meyer is our artist for this issue. He exaggerates certain facial expressions really well, but not to the point that they become over-exaggerated and like cartoony. He's good at writing that line. Dan Slott is our primary author here, I guess, whereas Jeremy Adams helps with the dialogue, and hey, that comes in handy as far as Guy Gardner is concerned. Jeremy Adams wrote one of my favorite Green Lantern stories overall for the last couple of years, Guy's Bogus Lobo Adventure. I highly encourage you to check that one out. Superman Unlimited is kind of hit or miss for me, as it's turned out, but it does have a really nice episodic quality to it, and it focuses in on various characters in Superman's world, so I really can't complain about it too much. And yeah, all in all, this is a nice issue that has Guy Gardner in it. And by the way, if you're not rooting for Guy Gardner to win the DC KO tournament, not really sure where your head's at, I think that would make the most interesting story. Guy Gardner, you know, the jerk that he is, just advancing through the tournament and finally gaining these godlike powers to face Darkseid. I mean, it's interesting. It's a compelling story. They should tell it. Over the years, we've seen a decent amount of composite Superman in the world of DC Comics. Composite Superman is like a physical and mental blending of Batman and Superman into one individual. Batman Superman World's Finest has even come up with their version of the character in recent years. But in Batman Superman World's Finest number 46, we get something that I don't know if we've ever gotten before, or if we have, it's been a long time. A blending of Lex Luthor and the Joker into one individual. A composite Luthor-Joker, if you will. And naturally, that's a big problem for Batman and Superman. And by the end of the issue, some secrets are revealed to the general public that they definitely did not want out there. I think this is a clever idea, a clever story, a clever issue. It's a nice twist on a classic DC Comics idea that I don't think we've seen before. I like the look for our Lex Joker character by Adrian Gutierrez. He's our artist here. The hollowed out eyes are naturally really scary with the pale skin. Gutierrez also continues to be great at drawing Hawkman, who gets the opening page here. Really nice to see that character get some shine. You know, if they ever decide to give him his own series again, which I assume they will, it's probably inevitable, they should give Gutierrez a call. Like, he's that good with Hawkman. But yeah, the twist at the end opens up a lot of intriguing possibilities. And, you know, it feels like our author Mark Waid is having a lot of fun here with Batman Superman World's Finest. And he's not the only one. Knockdown, drag-out fighting tournaments are all the rage in comics right now. There's a big one going on at DC with DC KO, we know that. But IDW Publishing and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are not about to be left out of the fun. This is TMNT Battle Nexus number 1. In the TMNT mythos, the Battle Nexus is a big interdimensional gladiatorial type tournament that pulls in characters from various different dimensions. We've seen it in various comics, TV shows, video games, and now we're seeing it here. This is basically our tee-up issue, which sets everything in place for the action to begin, but to its credit, it manages to have a lot of fun as it's doing its business. The book is scripted by Tom Waltz and drawn by the Escorzas. They, of course, worked on TMNT The Last Ronin. I'm not as in love with The Last Ronin and The Last Ronin universe as some people are. But it is cool to see this team work on a canonical TMNT book. To that end, early in the issue, we kick things off with a confrontation between the Turtles and Bebop and Rocksteady. That, of course, gives off classic TMNT cartoon vibes. In particular, I like the way Rocksteady is drawn here. He looks really big and imposing with like broad shoulders and big arms. On the subject of the original cartoon, we've got a short backup featuring Mr. Og, sort of a lesser known character from that old cartoon. I won't spoil it, but the artist Sarah Meyer gets to draw some really cool stuff there. But yeah, this issue sets the wheels in motion for something that could be a lot of fun. Fingers crossed. Folks, I'll be honest, I did not think I would be spending part of my Christmas holiday with absolute Batman. If I'd known that, I might have been a little nicer to him over the past year and change. But nevertheless, here we are. Absolute Batman guest stars in Absolute Wonder Woman number 15. In this issue, a series of murders leads Wonder Woman to Gotham City, where she meets and teams with Batman for the first time. You know, some of you might have seen the video where I give Absolute Wonder Woman a Baldy Award, designating it one of my favorite comics of 2025. But I did it kind of preemptively before this issue came out because I was worried that this issue would taint my perception of Absolute Wonder Woman for the year. Absolute Batman is just not my cup of tea, okay? I know a lot of people like it, but it hasn't won me over, at least not yet. But lo and behold, I really had nothing to worry about as far as Absolute Wonder Woman number 15 was concerned. This issue didn't blow me away, but it was fine. Hayden Sherman is our penciler here. His take on Absolute Batman is pretty good. And of course, we know his take on Absolute Wonder Woman is good. My favorite part of this issue is the fact that Absolute Wonder Woman and Absolute Batman don't fight when they first meet. That's not to say that there are no blows thrown between them in the entirety of the issue, but they don't immediately come into conflict when they meet each other. It's tempting to have superheroes fight each other when they first meet because, you know, they don't know each other and I guess they can easily misunderstand each other, but I don't know, that kind of feels like low-hanging fruit to me, and I'm glad that our author here, Kelly Thompson, didn't grasp for it. This issue indicates that it's part of a duet with Absolute Batman number 16, meaning that, I guess over in that issue, that book's creative team are going to get a chance to work with Absolute Wonder Woman. I don't know if I'm going to grab that issue, but this issue, Absolute Wonder Woman number 15, perfectly fine. No big complaints on my part. You know, it's really interesting what you can accomplish with a tiny lizard. Shut up. That was not double entendre, okay? Why would I? That doesn't even make. Not that there's anything. This is the Rocketfellers number 11, you perverts. So in this issue, the Rockefeller family is fleeing from Raina Rockefeller, who is right on their heels. They do like a teleportation jump to New Mexico and trash their bus in the process. But time jump or no time jump, the moment of truth is here for Roland Rockefeller as he must confront his sister Raina. So Francis Manipool is of course back as our artist here, in addition to being the co-author. And on the cover here, he has some fun with a tiny lizard in the shadow of Raina Rockefeller as she's approaching the bus. It's cute. But then when we open the issue, the lizard is back, as you can see, and he's got something to say. Now that I look at it again, the birds in this issue are also very talkative. It's a cute added effect. I don't think it takes away from anything necessarily. Incidentally, I love this title page. I love the way he incorporates the Rockefellers title into the impact of the bus falling over. Why am I so drawn to this bus? Like, why am I sad that it's been destroyed? Maybe it's because I'm old and it's like a retro-style bus. I mean, they did have some fun with this bus and the poster for Little Miss Sunshine. I know that, but I've never seen Little Miss Sunshine, so that doesn't really affect me, even though I think the image parody is cool. All in all, this is a really emotional, dramatic issue. Maybe the most emotional and dramatic since the first issue about a year ago. I do have one question, though, that's kind of been nagging at me since I read the issue. Francis Manipool, if you ever see this, hi. And here's the question. Does the tiny lizard have a name? If one is available, might I suggest Rob? Dust off your 10-gallon hats, oil up your spurs, and feed your horse some oats. Do whatever cowboys do to get ready, because we are kicking off 2026 with a DCKO roundup. So yeah, the Baldy Awards took up like 11 time slots during the month of December, and as such, I didn't get to talk about all the comics that came out last month that I wanted to. And I'm going to try and rectify that during the next several days here, starting now with some rapid-fire reviews of the various DCKO tie-in comics that have come out. Long story short, most of these issues are strictly okay. I mean, they're fine, but I'm going to briefly touch on the ones I haven't reviewed individually. Wonder Woman vs. Lobo came out in early December and was solid. You know, these DCKO matches all have like a 2 out of 3 falls type format, like classic video games. And what was interesting about Wonder Woman vs. Lobo is that they gave Lobo the first fall, the first win. So if this had been a sudden death match, Lobo would have beaten Wonder Woman. That's just interesting to me. The Harley Quinn and Zatanna issue impressed me. It kind of overachieved. I didn't expect them to have the right person win, go over in that story, but they did. Harley's strategy against Zatanna in the early going of that fight actually kind of impressed me. It was one of the more enjoyable DCKO tie-in issues that they've done. In The Flash number 28, we saw Guy Gardner take on Jay Garrick. That was an interesting matchup to put together. I really wish that they had just focused on the fight, though, between Jay and Guy. In that issue, we also divert our attention to see what Wally West is doing at different points. I don't need that, okay? Focus on the fight. Superman number 33 had a similar issue as we saw Lex Luthor take on the demon Etrigan. I liked how introspective Lex was during that issue. And also it was really a nice surprise to see Hayden Sherman as the guest artist. The Red Hood versus Joker issue was also kind of introspective as it relates to Jason Todd, which I didn't necessarily expect. It was a pleasant surprise. The story focuses largely on how Jason Todd has let not only the Joker, but Batman shape his identity and who he is as a human being, and that's a really insightful route to take. I appreciated it. Star Wars, Boba Fett, Black, White, and Red number 4, and the entire book thus far, the issues leading up to this point, have been creatively successful because they understand which version of Boba Fett we want to see. It's not this Boba Fett from the prequels. It's not even this Boba Fett from like the Mandalorian era. It's this Boba Fett. It's the mercenary that we originally saw in The Empire Strikes Back. This book gets it. So after Grand Moff Tarkin's niece is murdered at the Imperial Academy, Boba Fett is tasked with finding the killer, and in the process comes across a couple of other costumed hunter types. But yeah, this book I think really understands what made Boba Fett popular in the first place. I mean, he's a mysterious guy with a cool costume that wants to get paid and will ruthlessly pursue a payday at any cost. It's not a hard concept to get, really. Grand Moff Tarkin isn't in this book very much, but the angle with him is interesting. It adds a nice sort of extra dimension. And the black, white, and red color scheme really works. You know, it adds a certain gritty feeling to the proceedings. I think young me, like young 11 or 12-year-old me, you know, the grade school kid with hair, really would have enjoyed this book. It captures classic Star Wars and that era and this character very, very well. The Justice League's answer to Jim and Dwight from The Office are reunited in Green Lantern number 30. Yeah, that's right, all you hip young influencers who grew up with The Office. I can reference that show too. So this is my first time checking in with Green Lantern in a little bit, but in this issue, Hal Jordan has some kind of internal problem related to the story up to this point. And he goes to Gotham City to get some advice from Batman, and Bruce Wayne and Hal Jordan are famously, like, frenemies. Yeah, Batman and Green Lantern are always fun to put together because they've kind of got conflicting personalities, even conflicting motifs. You know, the Emerald Light with the Dark Knight. Ooh, that rhymed. You know, I picked this issue up largely because I have fond memories of the work Jeff Johns and his crew did with Batman and Green Lantern back in the, like, Green Lantern Rebirth era. I thought those stories were a lot of fun and really captured the sort of conflicting personalities of Bruce Wayne and Hal Jordan. This story doesn't quite match that vibe, but it is still very good and pretty strong. It's got like an animated series, Justice League Unlimited sort of vibe to it. I enjoyed it. And of course the visuals and the art are suitably strong. Our penciler here is Carmine Di Giandomenico. Okay, so inevitably we're going to ask the question, if Batman and Green Lantern are Jim and Dwight, what hero does Michael Scott correspond to? And of course that's an extremely easy answer. Michael Scott is Beyonce. Always.